I have hay fever, and it is so bad, and it's so annoying. And I don't know if you have hay fever, Michael.
No, because I'm actually supposed to be on this planet, so I'm not allergic to air.
Oh dear.
I'm not literally allergic to a season.
It's so hard, man.
And you have asthma and hay fever.
Yeah.
Do they compound each other in any way?
I don't think so.
Okay, so they're kind of yeah.
Yeah, I
can imagine hay fever being a problem. I mean, do you remember the episode of The Simpsons when they go to Cypress Creek because Homer's working for Scorpio and Lisa has to leave because she's allergic to everything in Cypress Creek?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, obviously, it's not just Cypress Creek. It's you can't move location.
Yeah, you could say you're up Cypress Creek without a paddle. Yeah,
you could say that. Nah, it's like people who don't have hay fever, they just won't understand. It's like it's so annoying. Like your eyes are itchy, your nose is itchy, and like you're constantly sneezing. Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst thing ever that you could ever possibly imagine or think of. It's
do you think people who don't have hay fever suffer from non-hay fever privilege?
Definitely.
That's sad. Okay, yeah. Well, that wasn't especially funny, but we'll just we'll have it because why not? Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out relatively recently and see if they still hold up. I am your host, Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Luke. And this week, we are celebrating the release of SpiderMan, Home Alone, it's Far From Home, by looking at SpiderMan, Alone Coming.
Yeah, that's great, Michael.
Yeah, I don't know what. Luke, why don't you tell us something about Spider-Man Homecoming?
Sure thing, Michael. So, as you said, we are doing this because Spider-Man Far From Home is being released this coming Friday. So, yeah, we thought we'd do Homecoming. I mean, we have got a bunch of Spider-Man movies to pick from, obviously.
Yes.
And we'll get onto that later, but yeah. So, Spider-Man Homecoming. It's a 2017 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Spider-Man. Oh, who knew? It was produced by Columbia and Marvel Studios, but distributed by Sony. It's the second Spider-Man film reboot and the 16th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was directed by John Watts, story by Jonathan Goldstein, John Francis Daley, and stars Tom Holland, Michael Keaton, Jon Favreau, Zendaya, Donald Glover, Tyne Daly, Marissa Tomei, and Robert Downey Jr. It was released on July the 7th, 2017, so almost 2 years ago. And Michael, can you give me the budget for Spider-Man Homecoming?
I'm 100% certain it's a lot. Oh, goodness me. Let's go for 140 million.
175.
Okay, yeah, well, I thought maybe I'd gone over, but yeah, wow.
And the box office?
800 million?
You know what, that's not that bad a guess. 880.
Okay, yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Good.
So, yeah.
Again, I thought I might have gone over there, but so clearly I just didn't have enough faith in this film.
The question is, Mike, will Spider-Man Far From Home finally knock off Spider-Man 3 as the all-time top-grossing Spider-Man movie?
Well, it certainly won't knock it off as the all-time greatest, most high-quality Spider-Man movie. I think everybody can agree on that. Yeah, I mean, I would expect so, is the answer. Yeah. I mean, these movies... I mean, so how much did Spider-Man 3 make? Did it break the bill?
I was like 950 or something, I think. Yeah, I think it is still the highest grossing Spider-Man movie, which is, of course, hilarious because it's probably the second worst of all of them. Yeah.
Though it is fun. I mean, if people were watching it for that reason, then everything would make sense.
Anyway, Michael, did you have any nitpicks for Spider-Man Homecoming?
I really thought you were going to ask whether or not I liked it, Luke, which is what you're supposed to.
Oh, fucking hell.
Well, usually, okay, so what happens is usually we forget. So at this point, we've probably done it the wrong way around more times than not. But seeing as I brought that up, I'll say that I did like this film quite a lot. I was going to say quite a lot. I like this film a lot. Did you like this film a lot?
No, I didn't like it a lot. I just liked it.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I guess this just shows that you hated it. But did you have any nitpicks, Luke?
Yes, I did actually.
I'm going to guess you had lots.
I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, okay. Because I've only got 3. But I was thinking, it was one of those things where while I was watching it, I was thinking, I bet there are like a lot of nitpicks here. But
yeah, and you just couldn't be bothered to
I don't know,
because you don't care about this podcast.
Yeah, because I don't care about this podcast. But anyway, here are mine then, obviously, because I've got the fewest.
Yeah,
so
you go first.
Ned says, "Don't come here, Peter, because," and then it flashes to Flash, riling the crowd up to call him Penis Parker. Okay, and I was thinking to myself, actually, that would be the perfect time to show up as Spider-Man, because just as Flash is making fun of Peter for not knowing Spider-Man, you would show up and say, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man. I know Peter." That's like the logic that he shouldn't go there because everyone's making fun of him is like counterintuitive. He should be showing Flash up.
Yeah, good point.
Hey, Flash, yeah, dickhead. Anyway, Ned wasn't worried about the clear space-age technology that he had in his backpack as he went through security. I guess I could also say as a nitpick that the security didn't pick it up, but I guess maybe they just, don't. I mean, I would think an X-ray would probably be able to pick up something like that, but maybe alien technology is more alien than I imagined. Either way, I would think Ned would kind of be worried. Like there'd be a scene where he'd be like, "Oh no," or like a moment where he's like, "Oh no, we've got to put our bags through X-ray." I've got this thing in here, but now he's just really casual about it. So I don't know. Maybe in this universe, it's common knowledge that these things don't show up on X-rays. But now I'd have to think, well, you know what? Does terrorism not exist in this universe? Are you telling me nobody has worked out that this stuff isn't picked up by an X-ray and then they've gone and blown up a plane? Okay, you're really
spinning this off here, Michael.
I know, yeah. And then finally, that jump by a normal person to catch Vulture midair was ridiculous. When the ship is sinking, the Staten Island ferry, and the Vulture is flying off very fast. And I think it's the Shocker, jumps and is able to catch the Vulture mid-flight as he's flying past. And I just think that's pretty crazy. Anyway, Luke, what are your 7?
Okay, so first thing is the timeline. So it says 8 years later.
I know this. All right, yeah, I've heard about this, and I wasn't even thinking about this, but yeah.
I mean, why not just 5 years later, man? Why not? Why does it have to be 8 years?
So that they can mess up the timeline, because they clearly don't care.
It's like it was all going swimmingly. I mean, you don't need to do that. Yeah, it's bizarre why they said 8 years later. Anyway.
Also, I mean, to be honest, you could have just inferred it was a fair bit later anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So they didn't need to really explicitly say it. We're not idiots.
So, next one. Spider-Man. Peter Parker. He's quite casual with his abilities. He just jumps over like the school fence when he's leaving school. Like that would definitely get caught on camera, because I imagine they would have cameras outside school.
They have cameras outside my school.
Yeah, and I bet someone could definitely see him through a window. There was a lot of windows in that building. Some bored school kid just staring out. Yeah, they'd see a man jump like 12 feet in the air, like over a fence. That'd get their attention. And also he just leaves his bag attached to a dumpster, which could potentially reveal his identity if, of course, it's got a load of Spider-Man webbing on it. Yeah.
Well, especially if he's got printed on it a sticker which says "Property of Peter Parker."
I knew that joke was coming. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I was thinking, why should he care about his identity? Because in this world, superheroes don't care about their identity. Like, why is he keeping himself so secret? There's no real advantage to doing that. Obviously, in the Sam Raimi movies, it's because he wants to protect Mary Jane and all that shit.
Yeah,
but not that in this movie.
Yeah, the Sam Raimi movies. I was just remembering when the Green Goblin crashes into Aunt May's hospital room while she's in the middle of praying, and she's like doing the Lord's Prayer, and she's like on the from evil bit, and the Green Goblin Budgie is like, finish it, and she's like, from evil. What a blessing.
What a great movie. Okay.
Anyway, yeah, so you've got more, yeah.
Yeah, oh, well, God, Michael, I've got 5 more. So,
I know, I was just thinking that there. I only just remembered how many you had.
Yeah, so the guy calling in the robbery of the bank, the guy who owns the best sandwich shop in Queens or whatever that bullshit is, why would he say Spider-Man is fighting the Avengers? Why wouldn't he just say Spider-Man is fighting a bunch of robbers?
Yeah, you know what, actually, that's true.
He can barely... Probably, I'm guessing, he can barely see their masks, because they're quite a distance away. Like, his shop is on the other side of the street. So, yeah, there's no reason he would say the Avengers. And
obviously it would needlessly confuse the police.
Exactly, and it would needlessly confuse the police, and it would also make the police think that it's a hoax call as well. So, yeah, just a stupid thing.
So it's a comedy of errors.
So, okay, the school... This is the weird thing about the school that Peter and his girlfriend and all the other kids...
I know what your complaint's going to be. It's going to be that this movie is too ethnically diverse. And I know, Luke, I was going to bring that up too.
It's not, actually. You know what? Around the time this movie was released, there was quite a lot of people complaining about the school being too ethnically diverse. I remember that. And there was a load of people like, well, that's Queens. Have you never been to Queens? And, it's just ironic that people were saying, oh, it's so unrealistic that there was a load of, ethnic minorities in the movie, when if there wasn't a load of ethnic minorities in the movie, that would be unrealistic. Yeah,
well, ever since Harry married Meghan Markle, Queens has even more minorities.
That's good. Well, not really, because...
Yeah, I know, because Queens...
Yeah, she's not going to be a queen, is she?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she could, if, or could she ever?
She could if, 15 people die.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. If.
All at the same time, obviously. Yes. Okay, so the point about this school is, it's like some typical shit average state school, apparently, because of, you got the wood chip teacher or whatever, woodwork, whatever that class is called, not looking at the kids, just reading his book. The gym teacher, played by, what's he called?
Hannibal Buress.
Hannibal Buress. I was going to call him Harrison Buress there, no. Hannibal Buress, he doesn't give a shit. He says to Peter when he walks out of the detention, oh no, just come back. Obviously he doesn't care. But why do kids like Flash, who's obviously rich, and Peter's love interest, Liz, who, she's probably the daughter of a millionaire. I'm guessing that's how much money Michael Keaton has. Why do they go to this school? That's what I'm thinking. But then Michael Keaton, later on in the movie, says, oh, well, if you go to that school, you're set up for life, aren't you? And I'm like, what? That's not the impression I get of that school. It just seems like a normal, shitty, average school. That's certainly the vibe I get. So pick a lane. Is it this really good state school, that all the rich kids and gifted kids, which Peter is, go to? Or is it like a shitty state school?
Yeah. I get you. And let me answer your question by saying yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, basically, I think, obviously you only see smart kids, but I think the logical conclusion would just be that's because it's Peter's clique, and therefore, obviously, that's the only people he'd be hanging around with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway, okay, so obviously this one's an easy one. Peter needs to go to Maryland, and there's an academic decathlon right next to it in Washington, D.C.
That makes sense, yeah.
Easy, simple nitpick. Okay, so this one I also thought about. Why didn't the FBI go and arrest Michael Keaton? So they have a bunch of criminals in custody that they would have arrested. They saw Michael Keaton's face. They know his organization. They probably know where he works and where he builds all this shit, because they would have got some intel on him before the operation. How can Michael Keaton just go back to his house and live a normal life? How did he get away? How is he still there? The next day, the FBI should have raided his home.
Yeah.
It's just that's stupid. Yeah. Anyway, next up, how did the shocker guy, obviously the assistant Michael Keaton, get to the school so quickly after Michael Keaton drops Peter off to make sure that Peter doesn't escape the dance and go after him?
That's a good one. Yeah.
It would have. You didn't think my FBI one was a good one?
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, I mean they're all good, Luke. But that one.
Oh, thank you.
But that one's an actual good one, rather than the other ones, which are just
I thought the previous one was good.
No, they are good. No, they're all good, Luke.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just like that one. Usually if I say it's good, it's because like I really didn't think about it at all. That's what good means to me. I wasn't thinking about that. Whereas if I like thought about it, I just think
you thought about the FBI. Why didn't they arrest Michael Keaton?
Yeah, I thought about that. I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? I don't give a shit.
It was the weekend. They were going to do it on Monday.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, so Michael, the plot. This is where I say the plot to Spider-Man Homecoming. Those are the nitpicks. So the plot. Well, I'm looking at it on the Wikipedia page, and I hope I'm not going to have to... here we go. So in Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter Parker tries to balance high school life with being Spider-Man. Well, if that doesn't sound like every other Spider-Man movie that's ever been created.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's missing the funeral at the end. So it's not enough like a Spider-Man movie.
Good point. Yes. While facing the Vulture, obviously that is the villain in this movie, the Vulture, who is played by Michael Keaton.
Yes.
So, Michael, the plot. Do you want to start off?
Right. Okay. So I think the first thing maybe we should talk about is the beginning, and this is not just because we're lazy and we just default to the beginning, but because obviously this film, it's got this nice little tie-in with the Avengers, which I think is kind of cool. It almost feels like this film is more important than it is. If you get what I'm saying.
It's part of the cinematic universe. Yeah.
Yeah, but also because it's like, it's harkening back to the beginning, the Avengers, which is kind of like, an interesting choice in that, they've not done that with other films. They're not like brought other films all the way back to the Avengers. So I guess maybe, and I think the obvious explanation would be because this film is picking up a narrative which heretofore, say for Civil War, that was a good rhyme, heretofore, say for Civil War, that has not really intersected with the main storyline. So I guess and I think that was kind of a really clever decision. You take it back to the beginning, back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity because of the, what are they called? Centauri? Alpha Centauri?
One of those
Roman
things.
Centurion guards?
Yeah, that's it.
And it goes back to them, and the guy, so basically the villain has found weapon tech. And I don't know, it's a really good kind of, premise for why does it. So basically, so it's after the big battle of the Avengers, there's lots of alien weapon tech lying around, and this guy is part of a building firm or a cleanup firm of some sort, and he's been hired to remove all of the alien stuff, only to find out that the government has now come in and said they're bringing in their own people, and they basically leave them out hung and dry. Is that a phrase?
Do you know what it reminded me, Michael? Do you know what movie?
No.
Batman v Superman.
Oh yeah. That is 100. That's a perfectly good take. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. So obviously, what you do is there's some shit that went down in the final battle of the previous movie. Obviously, the Avengers wasn't technically the previous movie to this, but
yeah,
you know what I mean.
A prior movie.
Yeah, a prior movie. And so some shit happened, and then they're in the cleaning up process, and the ramifications of the battle then lead into the next movie and influence the next villain and his motivations. That's what happened in Batman v Superman. I like that in Batman v Superman. One of the best things about that movie. And like this movie again, I fully endorse it. We'll talk about the villain later on, Michael Keaton.
Yes, we will.
Yes, but obviously, it's a good motivation for him. I do like how, by the way, in superhero movies, the villain is introduced like right away. I do find it like sets the stage for the movie quite well.
Yeah.
I do like that. Also, then after obviously the first scene with Peter Parker is a self-made video being taken by Peter, and this is really good because it's so clever because it explains the backstory. It's a really neat way to do it. You can understand his character. It's entertaining, and it fits in with him being like the kind of guy, like personality-wise. You can establish his personality basically as well, right from the get-go. So it does all of these things, and explains it in a fun way. a fun and unique way, obviously, because I've never seen something like that before, apart from in Justice League, which which wasn't as good as this, let's say.
But I think, and the other thing, my personal highlight for that was when he is waiting for his cue to jump out and surprise the Avengers, because that's one of those things, like, obviously, if you just see it in the context of the original scene, you're like, oh yeah, that's just a thing that happens in super movies. Somebody, you know, gets called and they just appear, whereas, like, you literally see him like, okay, I've got to wait for my cue, got to be ready, and I just thought that was, like, quite fun.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of, you know, deconstructing the genre a bit, you might say.
Oh, maybe, yeah. No, but it was a really good start to the movie. In both ends. So then we dive into the plot. So Peter Parker, obviously he's bored with regular old school life. He wants to go back on the exciting mission that he went on in Berlin. He wants to be an Avenger. He's quite bored with life just being a normal kid in New York City. And again, this makes sense, obviously. It's completely rational, like the thoughts he's thinking. I do love the enthusiasm when he puts on the suit for the first time. You know, when he's goes down a side street. You see the enjoyment of him putting on the suit. It's like, oh, that's great. Good acting from Tom Holland. And I guess it makes sense. Obviously, he's not solving like serious crimes in Queens, and he's just like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Because New York, it's a lot different to the 1980s. It's more gentrified. Less crime. If he really wants to make a difference, Michael, he should run for the Queen's District Attorney. I think
he might be a bit too young though. So, you know, basically, once he's, you know, if you're too young, you should just dress up as a spider and fight crime.
Yeah. Do you know why I referenced that?
No.
Because there was an election 2 days ago, I believe, when a person called Tiffany Cabin. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's like kind of a AOC thing, V2. This person, say, like a Democrat establishment candidate in Queens to become the nominee for the Democrats for District Attorney. I believe that's the case. That's why I made that reference.
Oh, okay, yeah. I got you. Yeah, and that's good reference, Luke. We love those references here.
Thank you.
And apart from that, okay, so I think the other major thing, I mean, have you said everything you want to say about the introduction, like the two introductory scenes, which I think they're both just really good, really fun. Yeah, just great. And then the other major thing, I mean, what do you see if you remember this, see if you get this prompt. What has always been my major complaint about the Marvel films, Luke?
What has?
I have had several, to be honest, though, but
the diversity.
Too much diversity. No, actually, okay.
Too many solo female superhero movies.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, no. What it actually is that I don't like that the Marvel films very rarely involve the dynamic between the superhero's life and their personal life. So, you know, obviously, for example, Batman, a lot of the story is about, you know, his personal trials, and like Bruce Wayne is just as much of a character as Batman, and things like that. And obviously Superman, for example, Clark Kent is just as much of a character, and got all that stuff. And generally speaking, you know, my problem with Marvel films, I've always thought, well, Thor, I don't really care about Thor's. I mean, Thor doesn't even have like a
doesn't have an alter ego, does it?
And that's kind of a kind of thing. But obviously, this film, one of the reasons why I was much more enthusiastic about it than I am about the average Marvel film is because it does have this Peter interfacing with his personal life, and I guess that's kind of the other major part of the plot. Obviously, there's the villain stuff, which we might cover as some of the plot, but also under the villain. But the other thing apart from the villain stuff is, of course, his personal life, and I guess there's also the other thing, which is the Avengers stuff. Maybe we'll do his personal life outside of wanting to join the Avengers first. And then, so what do you think about his personal life outside of wanting to join the Avengers? His high school life.
Yeah,
it took me a while to narrow that down.
Sorry, what was the question you were asking?
What do you think of his high school life? It's just my question.
Well, what do you mean? What do I think of it?
Did you think it was a nice little way of grounding the character? Is that what you thought, Luke?
Yeah, I guess. kind of leading me on here with these answers. Now, again, like, that's the thing. I mentioned it at the start when explaining the plot. Spider-Man movies, they always seem to be about this because the fact that he has to conceal his identity. So he's trying to be Spider-Man, and again, like, this goes back to the point I mentioned, there's no real reason for him to conceal his identity in this movie, but anyway, he's trying to be Spider-Man.
That's what Spider-Man does.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
why. I think that's why. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
even though it doesn't make narrative sense, it's because you can't have Spider-Man just be happy about being Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. So Tom Holland, again, he's trying to make his school life work, and he's trying to make sure that he can be.
He's trying to make his schoolwork life.
But I actually you know what? I kind of disagree, because I think he's not really trying to balance his work and being a superhero.
There we go, Luke. See, you know what? Even though I was coaxing you, you actually stumbled upon that. That was a trick coax.
It was a trick coax.
Yeah, because actually, I agree. My complaint was that I found Peter's absolute reluctance to engage with his personal life annoying, because it's literally like there's not really a moment where he actually puts off being a superhero for personal reasons. It's always he's putting off personal stuff to be a superhero. So basically you just have a film of a guy endlessly just abandoning his friends and his girlfriend and his opportunity to show himself up in front of Flash. Is it Flash Thompson?
Yeah, I think that's
not okay. Yeah, because I was thinking Flash Gordon, but Flash Gordon's a different thing.
Yeah, so obviously the plot says, I'll read it out again. Peter,
play it again, Sam.
Peter tries to balance high school life with being Spider-Man, and that's the case for pretty much every other Spider-Man movie, apart from ones where he's not in high school, but not this one. Like we said, I think he obviously sees he has an opportunity to move on to something bigger when he's trying to catch the Vulture, Previous the Man, and he completely ditches his schoolwork, all his obligations, like, to try and be the superhero. It's not about balancing, and it just, I don't think it's as interesting as if he's trying to juggle both things at the same time. Because then it's just like, well, it's part of the charm, I guess, of Spider-Man.
Yeah,
he's trying to do both things.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Tobey Maguire, he would never have just abandoned Mary Jane at the prom. He would have gone mental to be able to. Well,
that's a bit later on. That bit I'm kind of fine with.
That's true. Yeah,
that's a bit different. But obviously, what happens is it culminates with him blowing up a Spanish quiz to save this Staten Island ferry. Well, not save a Staten Island ferry, basically blow up this trade or this illegal deal on the Staten Island ferry, which the FBI were onto. Obviously, then gets himself humbled by Tony Stark, goes back to his normal life, it's like Spider-Man 2, kind of, with obviously the Sam Raimi one. But only for 2 minutes, though. It was nice if it was longer, I think. Because obviously, like, he's like, I don't like being a normal kid, I want to be a superhero. Then, like I said, he gets humbled. Then there's this, like, 2 minute stretch where he's just normal again. He's answering questions in Spanish lessons, and, he's asking Thingy Liz out for homecoming. It's like, I'm being a normal kid again. But it's so short. Like I said, it lasts for basically 2 minutes. I don't know what you think about that. I just think it's disappointing.
It harkens back to, of course, when Spider-Man stops being Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
But okay, and the other thing it harkens back to is when Spider-Man stops being Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And here's the thing, okay, the Spider-Man stops being Spider-Man in Spider-Man 2, it seriously impacts the plot, because he's like, for the entire middle third of the film, he's not Spider-Man, and you actually see, like, bad things happening around him and stuff going badly. Of course, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he stops being Spider-Man for literally, like, one scene, and then he watches a little speech. And this was much closer to The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in terms of stopping being Spider-Man. There wasn't, that cool moment.
That's not a good thing, is it, Michael? Being closer to The Amazing
closer to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, yeah. It definitely... and then on top of that, definitely he wasn't that enthusiastic about embracing his social life, and there was no moment. And I hope maybe they do go into this in Homecoming, but that almost seems less likely because it seems like the stakes are going to get bigger, and if anything, the role of his personal life is only going to get lower and lower. But maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think obviously I don't know. I've just seen the trailers, but it does seem like it's going to be exactly the same thing in Spider-Man Far From Home. Like, he's going on a vacation. He's trying to.
So what you're saying is that it won't be far from Homecoming.
Yeah, exactly. Ironic, Ken.
Like
so
rain.
That's the thing. He's going to be trying to get with what's she called? Zendaya, who's Mary Jane now, apparently. Although her name's actually Michelle, but whatever. So he fancies her, but then Mysterio comes out of nowhere, and he's got to balance work and being a normal kid on a vacation with his friends. So it seems like they're going to go down the exact same route. Sorry, with the next movie. And again, that's part of the charm of Spider-Man. I don't think you can really do much else with him.
Yeah. But the thing is, obviously, they have to do it. I think it would be ideal if they kind of do it better in terms of him actually caring more about wanting to engage. But
they didn't do. This movie they did not do it well. He doesn't try to balance stuff. He just dismisses work and school, and he's only normal, like we have said, for a very short period of time. So
yeah. So, and I guess I think you could almost say he also doesn't really get punished by abandoning things until kind of he gets punished, but then he doesn't. The punishment isn't carried out. Like, for example, he gets detention, but then he's just allowed to leave. And then obviously the only time he does get kind of punished for it is at the end. And even then, it's almost like not even that much of a thing, because like obviously he's abandoned. I can't remember. Liz? Yeah, Liz. He abandoned Liz at the prom, but that's not the main reason why she's sad. She's mostly sad because her dad is going to prison. So even then, it's like not even a major thing. So he never really gets. There's never a moment where it's like, oh, you put being a hero above being a person and being a kid, and therefore you're bad.
You're right. No, there isn't an actual moment. There should be both. There should be a serious consequence for him putting his Spider-Man stuff ahead of his personal stuff, and that, like you say, doesn't happen until the end. But again, like you say, Liz is moving to Oregon anyway, so that doesn't really matter. And there should be a serious moment where he puts his social life, his school life ahead of being Spider-Man, and obviously
something bad happens.
Yeah, and something bad happens that he could have stopped, and that doesn't happen either. So it's not as good as the Sam Raimi movies in that regard.
And obviously, the thing that he really wants to do, like his main motivation in this film, is to become an Avenger, which obviously kind of compounds the issues in some ways, because it's like, well, basically, far from being concerned about getting a date for the prom. If anything, that's actually kind of a crazy thing. This film is called, I just want to bring this up because I just thought of this. This film is called Homecoming. So you would kind of think maybe that the prom would be at least a kind of somewhat recurring thing. Like, it's home. I can't, maybe I missed it, but as far as I was concerned, all I was really thinking of was that it's like we see a sign saying Homecoming, and then he says, hey, Homecoming's coming up.
Well,
and she's like, maybe Liz, I missed a bit at the beginning.
Liz puts up a poster, and Peter's saying, has Liz got a new top? And Ned says, oh no, never seen him with that skirt before. Do you remember that? And she's putting up a sign that says Homecoming?
Yes.
And then Zendaya says, you guys are creepy.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, so they're at the canteen. Yeah,
they're in the canteen, yeah. So, there you go. That right there is when it was, and you're right, it's not really that prominent in the movie. It's kind of there. I guess, to be honest, the whole reason why Peter finds out that Liz's dad, this is the twist, obviously, Liz's dad is... Vulture.
The bird? Yes. Yeah. You know what I was thinking? So have you seen the film Birdman?
Yeah, I know.
And obviously, so that's the thing. I mean, basically just a sensible career move for the old Michael Keaton. Anyway, so basically, but the thing is, it's not like, for example, in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, obviously the thing you could say about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is the amount of times he goes on and off with Mary Jane is annoying. But the thing is, like, at least in the first film, you really do want to see him get with Mary Jane. You're really invested in it. In this film, it's more like kind of, it's just he doesn't care enough.
It's a second option for him. It's a second option. It's like, I guess I can't be Spider-Man. Oh, well, you know what? I'll be with this girl who I like then. Yeah, it's not really like front and center, which is, you know what? I said we were going to do it like a comparison to the Spider-Man movies at the end, but we've just constantly been comparing this movie to the Sam Raimi movies.
Yeah, it's quite hard not to do.
Yeah, I know. Anyway,
you know what? It'll be, maybe if we've got anything else to say, but so
that's the thing. I do actually have some stuff to say comparing this movie to the other Spider-Man movies, but we've just, I think it's impossible to talk about the plot without comparing it to the other Spider-Man movies, because the plot is essentially the same, but just worse. So, it's kind of hard to do that. But anyway, Michael, the twist. We need to move on to the twist now. I mentioned it before. Obviously, the twist in this movie is that Vulture, the bad guy, is Peter's girlfriend's dad. So, obviously, Peter opens the door.
Wait, hold on a minute, Luke. Are you telling me that a Spider-Man villain has a personal connection to Peter Parker?
Yes. So,
and do you expect me to believe that?
The cliche that every villain knows who Spider-Man is when Spider-Man is Peter Parker, is a cliche that is well-founded, and it continues in this movie. But I was fine with it, because this is a real twist. This subverted my expectations.
It was good.
It did something that I completely didn't expect, and it was interesting. And here's the thing, I don't think past mistakes should handicap you from doing good things in the future. Just because it's a cliche doesn't mean that you should abandon a really good idea.
Well, honestly, I kind of embrace the cliche. Like, I sort of think at this point it's like one of those things where it's just sort of like it's a spider meme. So if I were making
that's the thing. It was out of nowhere.
So what I'm so sorry. I'm kind of being positive. What I'm saying is it's one of those things you sort of have to do, and therefore I don't even hold it against them for doing it. And then on top of that, they did it well. So I'm kind of double agreeing, or I'm agreeing with you and then some, because I'm saying not only was it a good kind of new take on the twist, a new take on the cliche. But also, I'm kind of okay with doing the cliche anyway, because I just think it's such an institution of Spider-Man. I don't know if this happens like as often in comics, but
I would disagree with you there, because I don't think it should be an institution. Like, I don't think it should be. But the thing is, I'm fine with it in that if it's good, if it works, if it's interesting. And so, I guess you and I differ on the institution thing, but we both agree on it was a good move, and it made the movie more interesting. And I remember when I'll talk about this a bit later. I was watching it in the cinema, and the amount of gasps in the audience when Michael Keaton opened the door, it was great.
I'm not surprised. But the one thing that has to be said is Spider-Man is terrible at keeping us cool. It's kind of, I'm not holding that. Obviously I wasn't going to put that as a nitpick, because I think you could make an argument that he reasonably wouldn't be good at keeping us cool, but it is quite, it's quite entertaining in a way, watching him.
You gotta remember, he's just a nerd, Michael. He's just a nerd. You know, Michael Keaton's an alpha, you know. Yeah. Like when he's chopping those vegetables.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So manly.
No, that's the thing. Like Michael Keaton, I think, what was it? I think it was the Honest trailer that mentioned this on Spider-Man Homecoming, which I watched. They said that Michael Keaton just chopping vegetables just in the light while Peter's staring at him. That's scarier than him actually being the Vulture. And I agree. Like you could really get the sense that there's no background music, there's no noise at all, and Peter's just staring at this guy. That was a really good moment.
Well, I guess also the thing is like having your girlfriend's dad being scary and intimidating is obviously a thing as it is, and you add on top of that the fact they're an evil supervillain.
Supervillain, exactly. That's the thing.
So it's like you know, it's a kind of, I guess you could say it's like a clever. I don't really know what the word is, but like, so in other words, it's like a reflection of societal meme. So it's like, because in society it's like, oh, you know, your girlfriend's dad, he's scary. And this, it's like, oh, he's literally the supervillain. So it's like kind of funny.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it is. I guess it's kind of funny looking back on it, but yeah, it's also like, in the moment there wasn't really any humour to it, which I really liked. They didn't try to make it humorous. Yeah, which is a bit unusual, I guess, for this movie, because like everything else is humorous. But anyway, so here's the thing, Michael. I want to talk about the conclusion to the movie.
I also want to talk about the conclusion to the movie.
Okay, so here's the thing. What's Peter's problem? Why does he get the suit taken away from him?
Because he keeps putting himself in danger, going after people hijacking planes to steal weapons.
Okay, so yeah, Peter's problem is that he is too reckless. That's the issue. He gets his suit taken away by Tony Stark because of that. The problem is that he does something pretty reckless to redeem himself. So obviously he runs to find Michael Keaton, jumps on an invisible plane, which is thousands of feet in the air, to try and stop him. And then, obviously, the plane crashes. What if it crashed into a building and not a beach? Like,
I was thinking that, yeah.
Not millions, I'm sorry, I'm exaggerating, but
yeah.
maybe
Idiots.
thousands of people could die, depending on how many buildings it did hit. And obviously, it was just literally...
Hold on, Luke. That's setting up Spider-Man Far From Home, where Ben Affleck comes out, playing Mysterio, of course, and he watches as Mysterio Tower, the Mysterio Enterprises tower, gets hit by a plane, and he runs in, and he's like, I don't get that, Spider-Man.
Why do you... Yeah.
Do you bleed, Spider-Man?
Yeah. Why don't you write these movies, Michael?
I don't know. It's a tragedy that I don't, to be honest.
Yeah, so obviously then Tony Stark gives him a new Spider-Man suit and was going to make him Avenger. Tony Stark rewards him for being reckless. Like, what? What is going on here? Like, okay, so that's stupid, but it would be good if he realised... Also, okay, forget about the Tony Stark thing. I'm just talking about Spider-Man right now. It'd be good if Tony Stark realised... Sorry. It'd be good if Peter Parker realised, he wasn't ready for this kind of thing. And obviously he rejects the Avengers and stays becoming a friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man and all that shit, but you don't get a sense that that's what he actually wanted. He says, that was a test, right? And
yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, there is nothing that, it doesn't make sense that he rejected becoming... Sorry, it does make sense that he rejected becoming an Avenger because of this arc, but the problem is there's nothing that he really says or does that makes me think this character would actually do that. I would actually reject becoming an Avenger. Like, he doesn't have a retrospective moment. There's this shot after Michael Keaton gets arrested by the cops where he's just sitting, watching it all go down on top of that... He was like some white beams.
Ferris wheel?
Was it a Ferris wheel? I don't know.
It was obviously by a theme park where the collapse happened, so I imagine it was some kind of theme park thing. It could have been a roller coaster.
Yeah. It could have, yeah. So, yeah, basically he's looking down at this wreckage and, all the police and happy there seeing Michael Keaton. And I was thinking, this could be a moment when he's reflecting to himself like, damn, I just want to be a kid, I just want to live a normal life. I'm not ready for this thing yet. But he doesn't say that or do anything like that. So, yeah, there's obviously the line, is that a test, kind of undercuts the whole arc he's meant to have, but the arc doesn't really work either. It does feel kind of forced anyway.
Yeah, I think the thing is, like, obviously, I was kind of okay. I don't know what you think. I liked the joke that actually it wasn't a test, and also
it's a good joke.
The other thing I liked was, and this is a very minor thing, but the fact that this was also the reason why Tony proposes to Pepper. I just thought that was kind of like a cute thing, that obviously because they've got all the reporters there. I thought it was like a kind of fun way of having a little joke influence the wider narrative. But yeah, I agree with you that the fact that he thought it was a test undercuts his decision, and also the fact that, yeah, like you say, that there is no real moment where you think Spider-Man should want to be a friendly neighborhood. Should want to continue to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. In fact, if anything, and this is my thing, I would argue it's counterintuitive that he wants to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man based on what happens. Because...
Exactly, yeah.
Because he busts a small town criminal, somebody who the Avengers don't really care about. And in doing so, he causes hurt to his girlfriend by, or kind of girl he went on one date with, by obviously getting her father arrested.
Yes.
And that's kind of seems to be why he feels bad. But obviously the thing is, the Avengers, they don't bust small-time criminals. They bust massive planet-destroying entities. And therefore, obviously, if his concern is that he, used his power to put somebody in prison and he didn't like how it felt to see the effect that had on the family, then it would make sense that he would be like, okay, let's go fight Thanos. I don't give a shit about his kids.
I don't think it's that. Like, he just feels sympathy for Liz. I don't think he really, like, he's not sad that he put Michael Keaton in jail, because obviously he ties him up at the end. So I don't think that's the way to look at it. I think the way to look at it is, like, he should be like, I just want to be a normal kid. I just don't want to do this kind of shit. But again, there's nothing that he does or says that makes me think that that is the case with him. Like I said, it just feels forced.
Yeah, it kind of sort of comes out of nowhere, basically.
Yeah, there's no obviously because that is the character arc. He has to reject the Avengers because it's like, oh, he should, he doesn't need to be an Avenger. He should just focus on being like a normal kid. That's the message or whatever. But again, like there's nothing up to, because obviously we know about character arcs, but there's nothing up to that point in the movie that makes you think, yeah, he's going to reject the chance to become an Avenger. Yeah. So yeah, and then obviously the whole is that a testing, like I said before, just undercuts all of that kind of stuff anyway. And like, yeah, it was a decent joke, but obviously if your jokes are kind of undercutting the arc
emotional,
of the character, yeah, that's probably not the best thing to do in a movie which is kind of self-aware sometimes, but not that self-aware to do that. It's not a type of movie that should be doing that. So yeah, anyway, that's it, Michael. On that,
how about we talk about the villain? I just want to see if I've got anything else to say, just because. Right. Yeah, good. Yeah, good.
Yeah, okay. So the villain. Michael Keaton plays the Vulture. Obviously, we've said before, we like his motivation. He wants to get back at the city.
The way it starts.
Feels hard done by, and justifiably as well.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say on that note, like, one of the crazy things is I sort of, you kind of want the villain to succeed. And I was thinking to myself, two things which I thought were really good. The beginning, when it kind of shows their enterprise growing, and you see them, like, bringing in all of these trucks and stuff like that, and you see, like, the money being counted and things like that. It feels like these are, lovable. It feels like Ocean's 11. It feels like, oh, these guys are, bringing in the money, they're doing business, and it like made me root for them. I was like, yeah, good job, team. You're doing a good old fashioned heist. And I was thinking to myself, like, I could happily watch a film from the Vulture's perspective. It was like, hey guys, we're going to be, the Happy Hogan is going to be moving Stark Enterprises, so we're going to hit the plane. And the film shows, them trying to operate how they're going to do it and things like that. I would love that film, just watching the Vulture and his crew. And then the other moment is, of course, when the Vulture gets onto the plane at the end and he looks at all of the weapons and stuff and he's like really happy. And I was thinking, yeah, good job, Vulture. So really happy with him. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Obviously, I do have an issue though when he decides to become a villain. When he said, hey, boss, should we give this back to the city? And he's like, no, we'll keep it. And they're like, wait, boss, wouldn't that be breaking the law? Do you want to do that? In that great accent. And he gives some like weird standard villain answer. He says, the world is changing. It's time we did the same, or something like that, instead of, nah, let's go fuck those guys. We're keeping this. We've been treated poorly by the fucking billionaires like Tony Stark, the elites, the metropolitan global coastal elites.
So you're saying they kind of demoralized his motivation?
Yeah, exactly. They did. They demoralized it. They were like, yeah, let's just make him say some standard villain shit. And he does give a speech to Peter Parker, kind of
at the end.
At the end, yeah, he makes a good comparison to Tony Stark selling weapons to terrorists. But again, that's not really fleshed out. Like, could it be something that was fleshed out in the movie? You'd had to go in another direction there. You've had to, obviously that would. You had to beef up Michael Keaton's character, his storylines, and all that. But I think that would be quite an interesting way to go. But yeah, they didn't decide to do that.
No, yeah, I agree, and I think it would have been a really good moment. And I was thinking, like, there were there are moments where this character is very kind of morally sympathetic, like the fact that he's not that willing to kill people. I mean, for example, he kills the shocker guy, but he also says, in fact, does he really kill anybody? Because he kills the shocker guy, but he says, I thought that was the anti-gravity gun. Yeah. Implying that he wasn't going to, maybe he was going to rough him up or something, or I don't know, whatever. But, and obviously he doesn't seem too remorseful, but the point is, like, he didn't seem to want to, and then obviously he doesn't kill Peter Parker, even though he could. He knocks Peter Parker out and leaves him. You could make an argument he did kind of try and kill Peter Parker, and he had no reason to believe Peter Parker would survive having all of that rubble dropped on. But in general, he's not a killy guy, so that's something that makes him sympathetic. And the other thing I was thinking is when he talks to Peter and he's like, hey, don't get involved in this. And I was kind of thinking, I don't know why in my head, but I was thinking of like, if he'd said something more like, I didn't choose to do this. It's not, my fault that this is what I ended up doing. But you, Peter, you can choose now whether or not you want to get into this. Do you want to spend the rest of your life, having to do these fighting? Like I've got to fight all the time to make my way by, selling drugs and having trouble with the police. Do you want to spend the rest of your life just fighting for everything you've got? And it would kind of be like, Peter, think about maybe you could just have a normal life. It would kind of communicate the fact, obviously, because I think you get the impression from this villain that is like what started off as just like spite, because obviously he had this job and he says, that he got all of this money, invested all this money into it, and then he lost the job, and then I was like, you know what, screw them, we're going to use this to our advantage, and you kind of get the impression that it organically kind of developed into something bigger and bigger. So it's kind of like it was almost beyond his control.
So what he could do, so obviously what could happen, I like your idea, I really do. So obviously you'd have to cut some bit of the movie out beforehand to make this work, because you'd be adding probably about 20 minutes. But what you could do is have him go round to Michael Keaton's house, obviously, and because he's going to meet Liz, whatever. It's not the prom thing. It's just like a normal, like, they're meeting up, whatever. And so Michael Keaton answers the door. You have that big shock. Well, then basically Michael Keaton says that speech that you just gave to Peter Parker about you don't need to fight and everything, and then like he develops a relationship with Peter, and Peter then starts to realize, oh wait, it starts to really become a proper choice. It really crystallizes to him, what should I do? Should I just have a normal life? I can be happy with Liz. She can be my girlfriend.
And holy guac, Luke. That would also, we're just so good at this. We should be screenwriters. That would also bring in the fact that he has not been showing an interest in having a personal life.
Yes,
because
exactly. That would do that as well.
Because obviously the whole thing is like he doesn't seem to care about being with this. But obviously, if there was like, if this guy said, hey, my daughter's beautiful, you could marry her, you could, get a decent job, you're a smart kid, you could, have a family, things like that. You'll never get to do any of that if you go down this road. If you fight me and make me your enemy, you're never going to get to do any of that. And Peter could be like, oh, I really like this girl, I want to be in a relationship with her. Do I want to, throw all of that away to take down her dad? And so there we go.
Yeah. And that, again, at the end, obviously what happens is he ends up doing quote unquote the right thing, where he's like, no, I am going to be the hero, and that would make him obviously a proper hero, sacrificing his relationship and like possibly his future to do the right thing. Obviously Michael Keaton would probably have to do something a bit worse than try to steal some stuff, because obviously then he'd just be kind of doing what he'd been doing throughout the rest of the movie. It'd have to be a step up. Like he'd have to do something extra evil for Peter to to be like, no, I'm going to become a hero. But yeah, like again, I think that what we've just done there, just talking about that for 10 minutes, really would have been quite real. It would have been really good. I think we should pat ourselves on the back for that. I think that'd be better than this movie. It would definitely make it a lot more interesting. And it might even rival the Sam Raimi movies, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, we can dream.
Stuff. Yeah. Also, okay, so yeah, I actually do think that's a really good idea. And maybe one day, Michael, Spider-Man Far From Home coming 27 in the year 2062. We can write that script.
Well, actually, you know what, Luke? It's funny that you bring up writing that script, because when I was... it was when the Amazing Spider-Man was coming out, I was thinking to myself, do you know what's really annoying me? I was thinking, all of these reboots, what they should do is they should just take all the classic villains and they should like tell this coherent story where you get all of the different girlfriends coming in, all the major girlfriends, all the different villains, and they have their own kind of plots around it. I kind of drafted up a little wider narrative. It's stretching over 15 episodes, but I'm not going to go through it all 15 films. But here's the important thing. Do you know who my first villain was? The villain I was going to start with?
I don't know.
The Vulture.
The Vulture.
And here's the other thing. Do you know who my villain was? This is genuinely 100%. I guarantee this was around 2013. I came up with this after seeing The Amazing Spider-Man. The second villain, Mysterio.
Mysterio, yeah.
Like, because the thing is, like, I had like the Vulture. Basically, the Vulture was just going to be not dissimilar to the reptile in The Amazing Spider-Man. And then Mysterio, he was actually going to be somebody who was kind of hired to be like a second Spider-Man, because I figured, because Mysterio, his whole thing is kind of like an actor, so I think, he's an actor, so he could be like anyway, but it doesn't really matter. But I was just thinking to myself, like, these bastards, they're stealing my idea. So I'm going to say this on the record, okay? In episode 3, this is kind of stolen from you'll see that this is sort of stolen from The Amazing Spider-Man 3, but Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, but episode 3 was going to be Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin and Sandman. So, and also I will say this, episode 2 was also going to feature Black Cat, who is a villain that later goes on to become a girlfriend of Spider-Man. So just for the record, I think they are stealing these ideas. I think they hacked and were like, the Vulture will have that. Mysterio will have that.
Nah, so to be fair, I understand what you're kind of saying, because when I come up with an idea and it's mainly relating to like football or the NBA or sport, and it's an idea to make something better, and then like they actually do it in real life, I'm like, fuck, they stole my idea. I do think that instead of like, what you wanted to happen has happened. Yeah. It's a narcissistic feeling. But
it's kind of like how something of a futurist who likes to believe that I could really fix many of the environmental problems we have with comprehensive infrastructure reform and things like that. If that ever happened, if like they did all the things I want to do, like really embraced maglev train technology and all that kind of stuff, and sort of really pedestrianized urban centers and all those things, that would be a really good thing. But there'd be a part of me that would like, stole my idea.
Yeah.
So, especially, I mean, obviously I'm not going to lay out my complete plans for the universe, but if they steal my complete plans for the universe, I think they would be good plans for the universe, and it would be good if they were implemented, but I would be angry that they'd implemented them without giving me credit.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, a bit of a move away, but it's just because you brought up the fact that we were, kind of fan fictioning our way through this, and I was thinking, I'm going to bring that up. Anyway,
so the Vulture, Michael, back to just one more question here before we move on to humour.
I actually have a few other things to say about the Vulture, actually. So, but you can say your thing. Okay,
well, I just want to know why he was a vulture. Like, he's got all this tech. Why the fuck does he dress up as a massive bird?
I don't know. You know what you just reminded me of, though. Sorry, but in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, when you get the villain costumes in so and they've got the Vulture's wings and stuff like that in the background, and she's just gonna go, here you go. Anyway, I guess, I mean, here's the thing, okay, so it makes sense, I think, that you want wings. Like, who wouldn't want to fly? Like, I'm fine with that. It kind of doesn't really make sense that he didn't just think, hey, Iron Man exists, I'll just kind of model myself after Iron. Okay, yeah. But I mean, maybe it's one of those things, like, he just, he's just an eccentric. Maybe he'd been reading some Spider-Man comics and he thought, these villains sure are interesting. I'll be one, maybe he thought.
Yeah, sorry, what did you say? I think you cut out.
To be honest, what I said didn't really matter too much. Your response was already sufficient up until the point where you said, what did you say? You could have just ignored me and it would have actually been fine.
Okay.
Because I was just rambling. Anyway, so I had a few things to say. Actually, I will bring this up. They mentioned a guy called Mark Gargan. And I can tell you from my intensive Spider-Man knowledge, he is a villain. And I think I'm right in saying he plays a character called Scorpion. Who I think is a really cool idea in theory. Like basically the character is, he's got like a mechanical tail and it's got obviously like something that injects venom in it. I think that would be pretty cool. I don't know if they were actually going to see him or if they were just mentioning him because they're like, let's just have them be doing a deal with someone. Anyway, but that's not really what I want to say. What I want to say is number one, okay. Spider-Man is a good example of something which I would think in theory shouldn't work within the Avengers universe, because my big problem with Batman in the Justice League is that obviously almost every single Batman film that's ever been told could not be told within the context of the Justice League. So in the DC expanded universe, you couldn't have the Christopher Nolan stories because Superman would just, rinse everybody. So it wouldn't work. And I was kind of thinking to myself, like, Spider-Man, the whole appeal of him is that he does have these kind of small villains. And obviously I was thinking to myself, like, how can you make that work in the context of the Avengers? And I guess they kind of did a good job is all I wanted to say, like, because it's like they are dismissive of Spider-Man and that's why they don't really care to help. And it's kind of like showing how the Avengers have become detached from the lower levels. So I thought that was kind of a good job there. Because obviously the big question you always have to ask with these Avengers solo films, it's something we've spoken about before with, for example, most obviously, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which was the worst example of them completely failing to account for why the Avengers didn't get involved. But generally speaking, they have done quite good jobs, and I just thought it was worth noting that they did a pretty good job here of explaining why he wasn't involved. And final thing, I'm happy that the villain didn't die. So one of the things that you get is of course the villain dying from their own hand. So you get the Green Goblin tries to kill Spider-Man with his glider, and obviously Spider-Man jumps out of the way and the Green Goblin stabs himself. Dr. Octopus jumps into the sun as it's or the big fusion thing he's got and gets killed. The Eddie Brock jumps in because he's become so attached to the Venom suit that he jumps in as it's exploding. Basically, the villains, Spider-Man very rarely straight up murders the villain. And I was kind of thinking to myself, obviously, when he's flying away and Spider-Man's like, no, it's going to explode. And I was kind of thinking, it's going to be that thing again where the villain, dies from their own hands and Peter, he tries to save them, but he can't and they die and it's really tragic. It's going to be that thing that happens again. And then obviously he didn't die. And I was like, you know what? Good thing he didn't die. Because if he had died, I would have thought, they always do this. They always have just like these villains just suddenly have a Faulty Towers moment at the end. I was trying to think of an example of slapstick comedy, and that was the only thing I could think of. What's another good slapstick comedy show?
What's that? Malcolm and Wise?
Yeah, there we go. They're really competent throughout, and then right at the end, they always end up just killing themselves. So basically, it kind of shows that Spider-Man, he doesn't even need to be there. He can just chill, wait for them to mess things up for themselves. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So we can talk about the humour now.
Yeah.
I was the only one who had one thing to say. So there were, I would say, first of all, the humour in general, I thought was good. I thought in general, I don't really have that much patience for Marvel humour. I always find it kind of feels like just a lot of people being inappropriately humorous. And I did think there were some moments of that, but in general, I did enjoy the humour more so, and I think that makes sense because it's Spider-Man, he's kind of a funner character. But the one thing I wanted to point out in particular that made me laugh was the bit where he's in the suburbs and he obviously uses his web slinger and it just goes out into the night. And I was kind of thinking to myself, that's really funny because one of the things that I think is a nitpick for the entire Spider-Man concept is that this person who gets the ability to sling webs just happens to live in New York City with probably, I would imagine, the most skyscrapers ever. And
actually, I think the most high scrapers is Hong Kong. I think.
Oh, okay, there we go. So we need Hong Kong Spider-Man. But obviously, if it happened to me, for example, web slingers would be useless as far as transport goes, because there is not a single skyscraper within eyesight of me where I live. So I just found it kind of funny the way it was like the fact that he couldn't obviously travel because he was in the suburbs, and then he obviously had to be like, oh damn it, I can't do it that way, and then just run like a plebeian. So I like that.
Yeah, good point. So I actually put that down as well, Michael. So I really like that thing. So yeah, the whole sequence of him like unable to swing in on skyscrapers, crashing through the suburbs, trying to catch up with the car. I thought that was good. It showed like, oh yeah, Spider-Man sometimes. Yeah, I like it that it did show the limits of Spider-Man in a comedic way.
Yeah.
But as for the humour in general, yeah, it was kind of like your funny, typical Marvel stuff. Like Ned, who's the comic relief character or the sidekick. He does a good job. It's a solid performance from him. We know.
Oh yeah, we haven't really brought up then. He is.
Well, yeah. Again, there's not really that much to say about the guy.
Yeah, although he is a completely new character, which I think is kind of an interesting.
Yeah,
thing.
No, he's completely new, but yeah, he's meant to be like the sidekick comic relief guy, and yeah, he puts in a good performance as that sidekick comic relief guy. He certainly makes a lot of funny, awkward comments, which is a staple of a Marvel movie. So yeah, and I brought up this before, Michael, but I did see this movie in a cinema, and it was while I was in America. So it was when. So you know what I was doing in America, right? When you were. It was like some kind of young youth camp thing, something like that, wasn't it? Yeah. So obviously in America, in the summer holidays, whatever, parents who are wealthy enough, and even parents who aren't that wealthy actually, send their kids to like camps, like summer camps. So I was a counsellor, one of those, and we one day went to watch Spider-Man Homecoming. The cinema.
Oh yes, you told me this whole story, but yeah, I'll hear it again.
Oh, I was going to say, well, the cinema we went to actually, it was really nice. Like, it was properly nice. Like, Americans, they know how to,
how to cinema.
Yeah, exactly. And there was one line in the movie which caused absolute uproar among all the kids who were watching. Can you guess what that was?
No. Was it like, porn?
Yeah, the porn line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, when he said, I was watching porn, like, oh my god, it was like an eruption. Like the kids, like they went wild. Like they'd never heard anything as funny as that in their entire lives. So that was the kind of audience it was going for, and I think the comedy, particularly on that line, it delivered.
Well, do you know what that is very similar to?
What?
It's a so it's a joke from. Have you ever seen the IT Crowd?
No. Oh, yeah, okay. I have seen the IT Crowd.
I'll explain the premise is quite simple. Basically, Roy's dating a woman. She's absolutely perfect in every single way, but her parents died. And he asks, how did they die? And she says they died in a fire at Sealand. And Roy is like, and she's like, at the Sea Lion show. And obviously Roy is just really confused by this, because how could her parents have died in a fire at the Sea Lion show? And the kind of subplot of the episode is he's looking things up, like are the steps made out of stone? Is there any record of a fire? Blah blah blah. And at one point he's researching this because she's really sensitive about it. She's like, we can never talk about it, so that's why it's annoying Roy all the more. And at one point he's researching it, and she walks in, she's like, Roy, what are you doing? And he goes, masturbating. So clearly, they stole that joke. Yeah. So 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10, yeah. No, I think the humour in general, I think we can both agree, like, it's okay, but it's clearly, I think, aimed for people who are younger than us. That's certainly the sense I got.
Yeah,
so
the young whippersnappers, as we call them.
Yeah. Okay, so, Michael, I think now, although we've done it previously, I want to move on to comparisons with other Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
So this one...
That you do.
Yeah, this one right from the start is different because it hasn't got an origin plot. Like other Spider-Man movies, there isn't any Uncle Ben stuff which I think both those things, it was the right thing to do to get rid of that, because I think when you create a new Spider-Man universe, when literally the same franchise just had a movie that came out 3 years ago, well, that's all it was, just a 3-year gap in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think you're right to skip all that stuff and assume that everybody knows that stuff, or anybody who doesn't know that stuff doesn't care enough for you to do that. And let's just make a fun movie. Let's just forget all of that. Like it feels to me like it's baggage. Uncle Ben and the origin and all. Nah, just put it to one side and let's just have a movie which just focuses on Peter Parker without like the origin stuff. And I agree with that. Like, I think that was the right thing to do.
I think it was the right thing to do. What the thing is, it frustrates me simply because I think to myself, like, they keep rebooting it, and the problem is it means that let's suppose that this series is a really good series, which I don't think is necessarily going to set up to be a fantastic series, but it will be like, but you kind of just have to, in your head, just mesh it in with the Raimi series, because you've got to be like, okay, we'll have the origin stuff from the Raimi series, and then we'll just kind of imagine it meshing into here. And I was like, I don't know, I like I want to have a bit of I like having the whole shebang. I like having my origin story and my non-origin story in there. But it's fine though, because I mean the problem is the wider context, it makes sense. Like, obviously the wider context, we've already had so many origin stories. The problem is basically all of the blame lies on the Amazing Spider-Man. Because if we didn't have the Amazing Spider-Man, then they wouldn't have done another origin story, and then maybe they would have felt more secure to do a Marvel origin story, and then we could have got just 2 origin stories rather than basically 2 origin stories, but one of those origin stories is in a franchise nobody cares about. But at the end of the day, I agree with you that they might as well have just not done it, seeing as who cares, and they've done too many now.
It would be nice if things were different, Michael. It was nice.
It would be nice if things were different.
Yes, but they were obviously put in a position where, like, are we really going to do another origin story, the Spider-Man? And they were like, no, it's not. And that was the correct thing to do. So I just want to talk, though, Michael, about the character in this movie. This Peter Parker compared specifically to the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker, because the thing is, I say comparing to other Spider-Man movies, we're really just talking about comparing it to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, because the Amazing Spider-Man movies aren't that good, and they have a lot of holes in them, and it is, although your gasp says otherwise, it is pretty uncontroversial to say that. I think everybody knows they're subpar, so we don't really need to talk about that. We need to talk about how this compares to the Sam Raimi movies, and I think one area which the Sam Raimi movies are a lot better, and we haven't really brought this up, you brought this up a bit when talking about him becoming an Avenger earlier, is the fact that what is Peter Parker's motivation to become a superhero? In the Sam Raimi movies, he is motivated to become a superhero because of responsibility. Obviously, Uncle Ben gives that speech, with great power comes great responsibility, and all of that. And obviously, in this movie, you don't have Uncle Ben, and that's maybe why, he's not motivated by that. In this movie, Spider-Man isn't motivated by, responsibility, by, I've got to do the right thing because I've got these powers, I've got to save people. He's motivated because he thinks it's cool and he wants to be an Avenger.
Yeah.
And obviously it makes sense that, because this movie is more comedic, but I do prefer the previous motivation because it is more superhero-esque than like, I just want to be cool, And do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a Rick and Morty episode where it's, I don't know if you've seen all the episodes or if you've seen the show.
I've seen I've actually only seen like 1 or 2 episodes. I should watch it, but I just never make the time for it.
It's when Morty wants to become one of the Super Friends. So this is a group kind of like the Avengers, I don't know, called the Super Friends, and he's like, he just wants to be a super friend because it's cool, basically. He thinks they're really cool, and that seems to be that's what Peter Parker wants to be. When he wants to be an Avenger, he wants to be an Avenger because it's cool, and he's missing the point of what an Avenger actually is, which is you're meant to be a hero, and that unfortunately is not as good a motivation as responsibility and all that. Ned says at one point, you could have been killed. Remember when they're walking to school? And obviously, I think he's 15, isn't it? Isn't he Peter Parker in this movie? He's 15?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And it's true, he could have been killed, and he's 15, and he's risking his life. And I think that kind of fact, which is true, doesn't really fit in well with the tone of the movie. Like, oh, I want to be an Avenger, I want to be cool, you know? It's like, well, you could have just been killed there. What are you talking about? Like, and sure enough, there's the movie, when Ned asks that question, like, or says, oh, you could have been killed, he asks a question right after that. It hardly dwells on that fact by saying, like, oh, do you lay eggs or whatever? Like, it quickly moves on from that, from that fact. So, yeah, I guess, overall, yeah, I just prefer the previous motivation. I prefer the why Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man. It's because he wants to be a hero. He wants to help people, not because he wants to join some cool club that'll, you know, make his girlfriend like him more, you know. Yeah. So that anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my feelings, and I guess you agree.
Pretty much entirely. I mean, it's. I guess the only thing you could say is it's kind of like Spider-Man is one of those villains, heroes that everybody wants to be. So you kind of say, seeing as he is a hero. I don't know why I keep doing it. A hero everyone wants to be. It does make sense that he would be somewhere where you explore the idea of wanting to be a hero. But having said that, I don't think there's really any need, because one of the things that's like cool about Spider-Man is the fact, like, it's kind of like the point is people want to be a hero like Spider-Man because Spider-Man is a hero. People don't want to be a hero like Spider-Man because Spider-Man wants to be a hero, which I think is kind of the problem. Like, for example, I mean, obviously there have been films which have deconstructed the idea of wanting to be a hero, like, for example, Kick-Ass, or Kick-Ass as it should be called because it's American. But anyway,
kind of the villain.
Yeah. So there are lots of films that have explored that idea. So it kind of doesn't, seeing as Spider-Man is one of the OG heroes who is genuinely a hero because he is a hero, I think you should kind of keep that part of his character of him wanting to be a hero. So yeah, I agree. The Raimi versions are better.
Yes. Last thing on the comparisons to other Spider-Man movies, web slinging or mechanical.
Yeah, we've spoken about this before. Like, the fact that, in fact, in general, I think we should, this is something that I should have brought up, or I could have brought up a bit earlier, but the tech, I was thinking to myself, like, the big challenge for Spider-Man in this film is that he has to fight the Vulture without his tech. Like, that's the big, and it's kind of like, I remember when he's like, come on, Peter, you can do this, and he lifts up the rock, and I was thinking to myself, that's his challenge right now, is he's got to do this about his tech. And I was thinking, but like the original, I mean, in both other versions of Spider-Man, obviously in we'll just talk about the Raimi one, he has no tech, it's just him, and like that's basically just a normal day for him. So I found that kind of funny. And in general, yeah, the position is, I think, all the tech in the Homecoming, it has to be there, because otherwise the open-ended question would be, well, hold on a minute, Tony Stark is this, Iron Man exists, so why would he be letting this kid walk around without it? The thing is, the web slings in particular, though, obviously the big thing is, it's a coincidence, and it's an unnecessary coincidence. He's already got the powers of a spider. Why not just have part of those powers include the fact he can sling webs? Because otherwise you have this weird situation where somebody who happens to get bitten by a spider, which gives them the power of a spider, is also somebody who's come up with a completely unique formula for a chemical web slinging thing, which I think we've spoken about before, and you have a similar opinion. So basically it's an unnecessary coincidence when it would just make sense to have it be like in the Sam Raimi version, where it's just something that comes with the fact that he's a spider.
Well, yeah, here's the thing, like, the web-slinging thing is a big part of Spider-Man. Like, he wouldn't be able to be Spider-Man without the web-slinging thing. So, if you're creating that, then it kind of removes from Spider-Man. Like, it's good that it naturally comes out of him, because it's like, it's part of him. But, like, I'm just thinking, well, couldn't Tony Stark, like, be Spider-Man then? Couldn't anyone be Spider-Man? Yeah. Because they can just get the suit, they get the webbing, and they can just be Spider-Man. Like, it removes the unique aspect of Spider-Man as a hero if he has to make these mechanical web shooters.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so conclusion, Michael, now. I think we're all done.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. So, yeah.
So, do you want to go first, or shall I?
You go first, because I just want to get my thing up.
Okay, so I'll go first. This movie, I think, again, we have criticised it quite a fair bit, I think. especially comparing it to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. But I think overall...
Oh, no, I just remembered what it was I wanted to bring up.
Oh, fucking hell. No, go on. I'm not actually...
J. Jonah Jameson.
What's he got to do with this?
Well, I'm just saying, like, basically, that's your big problem, because the problem with rebooting these films is that you've got to just have the fact that you're never ever going to be able to have J. Jonah Jameson like what they did in the Sam Raimi films. So I'm just saying, basically, as far as I'm concerned, in order for a film to really succeed, they're really going to have to tick that J. Jonah Jameson box, because until that point, it's just going to be a Spider-Man film without J.J. Simmons. Is it J or J.K.? J.K. Simmons doing his J. Jonah Jameson, and I just think you gotta bring up that whenever Sam Raimi Spider-Man is mentioned. But there you go, Luke. Continue your thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Michael. That was why couldn't you said that in your conclusion?
I just thought it would be fun to interrupt you.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so basically I was saying we criticised it a lot, especially because we both enjoy the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and it's natural to compare it to those movies. And we both think the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are better than this, I would hope. But yeah, again, even though we've done that, even though we've criticised it, and at the end of the day, it's just a fun, playful, kind of comedic movie, and I don't think we can actually bash it that much. Like we can nitpick it, we can say, well, this wasn't as good as that, but like the fact is, it's just fun, and that is a theme throughout this movie. It's just fun, and so obviously you said at the beginning that you really liked it, and I said I just liked it, and again, maybe this review, the way we've kind of criticised it at various points, and yeah, those criticisms are valid, but at the end of the day, it is just fun. And I feel like I need to stick up for this movie because we have taken it apart a bit. Obviously there's the issues with the conclusion, the fact that obviously Tony Stark rewards him for the same reason that he reprimanded him before. Peter Parker wants to go back to his normal life, even though it doesn't really make sense that he does. And obviously the whole thing about him not actually getting the point of, not being an Avenger because he says, oh, is that a test? So all of that's bad. The villain, yeah, I do like the villain. They could have expanded on it more. They could have expanded on Peter, or they could have not expanded. They could have done it better in terms of Peter's life. How can he balance work and school and being a Spider-Man? They don't, as we've gone into it, they haven't really done that well. The humour, again, not that good. It's okay. And so, yeah, I think there are plenty of reasons, like I said, to criticise this movie, but yeah, it is kind of fun. And yeah, I didn't really have any problems with watching it. Yeah, it's okay. It's nice. It's a nice movie. It doesn't reach the heights of previous previous Spider-Man movies. Sam Raimi's will always be the best forever and ever and ever. So I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. I feel like that's fair.
Yeah, that is fair. So yeah, I mean, obviously that was quite an extensive kind of summary, and that's not a bad thing because it means I don't have to say as much because you kind of covered most of what needs to be said. Yeah, again, basically this film, it is very fun. It's very enjoyable. It's, I would say, one of the better Marvel films, but having said that, I think the Spider-Man character is not really designed for Marvel. Like, the thing is, I think one of the things that kind of shows the problem with this is that this film ends with Spider-Man saying, oh, I just want to be friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It's kind of like a cute moment, even though it's not particularly earned. And then literally in the next film, he's fighting space aliens and a man who wants to wipe out half the galaxy after he gets the literal abilities of a god. The problem is, I think at the end of the day, there's no real point investing that much effort. I mean, this is this kind of cynical me thinking, like, I think within the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at the end of the day, if you just invest loads of effort in having this fantastic Spider-Man film, well, there's only so long that he can remain the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man before he has to get embroiled in all this other stuff. I'd be interested to see, how well they do at kind of keeping it logical, that he remains his stories remain kind of small and grounded when obviously all this other stuff is going around. That would be interesting. But apart from that, I mean, you already covered all the quality stuff. The Sam Raimi universe just does a lot better. I mean, there are maybe a few things this film. I think the action in general is very good, and obviously CGI is better. But in general, it doesn't have that much going for it. And apart from that, I will say that it's going to be in the 7 range. I think I'm going to rate it just above Die Hard, below the Lego Movie, which I think is fair. The Lego Movie, obviously, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Michael, predictions for Spider-Man Far From Home. What do you think it will get on Rotten Tomatoes? For reference, Spider-Man Homecoming got like 87, I think.
I think it will do well. I'm going to plant my flag at the 85.
85. Okay, I think it will do better than that. I could go 90. I was going to go 92, so we'll go 92.
All right, yeah.
Even though it'd be tactically better to go 90, but I'll go 92. Anyway, Michael, so Toy Story 2.
Yes.
Sorry.
Toy Story 4.
Toy Story 4. Okay, so these are the receipts. You predicted it would get 90%. I predicted 95. It got 98. So that is a win for me. I believe we're tied 5-5 at this stage.
Yep.
So yeah, this battle will continue long into the year.
Yeah.
Who will come out on top, eh? Who knows?
Only you decide, so cast your votes.
Yeah. Actually, am I winning 6-5? I think I might be.
I would kind of think, I feel like you won like the last couple. Like I had a really good moment and then like a really good run, and then I think you've kind of come back. You're on form. I
won the first one, then you won, so it's 1-1, then I won the next one 2-1, then 2-2, then you won the next one 3-2, then it's 3-3, then it's 4-3 to you, then it's 4-4, then it's 5-4 to me, then it's 5-5, then it's 6-5. So yeah, I have taken the lead with my Toy Story 4 prediction. 6-5 to me. Anyway, Michael, what are we doing next week?
We are doing... I had to schedule up. I should know what it is anyway. I always know what it is. Forrest Gump, yeah. I literally remember thinking about that. It's going to be Forrest Gump. So yeah, it's going to be Forrest Gump. I'm guessing because it's been 25 years.
25 years. Yep. Exactly, Michael. 25 years, yes. Well done.
Yes, so that's going to be obviously a classic, and hopefully you stick around. But until then, no... You do it, Luke.
Thank you. We have been selecting and reflecting on Spider-Man Homecoming because of Spider-Man Far From Home. Join us next week for Forrest Gump. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I'm Luke. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Shut up.